of the Free Speech Union, and the popular socialist, Stephen Pound. Come on, Stephen, old socialist. Do you love the House of Lords? Do you want to keep it?
I don't. I think you make a very valid criticism. Though when you say it's full of remainders, it's full of remainders in many cases. These are people who simply were somebody something. Look, I think we start from two basic premises. Firstly, the idea of a revising second chamber is a good one. Most places in the world have and having people like Aradazi and some of the people you have in the House, Admiral West, Roberth, and people like that. But then, is the present House of Lords the best we can do? Why the only legislature outside the Majlis in Iran, where religious leaders can sit in the House of Lords as of right? The idea is you have theologians, the bishops of the Church of England can automatically come in there. Look, it's far too big. It's far too full of cronies. The present process for actually filtering nominees to the House of Lords, I was actually asked, by my party leader to go there. And I said, no, I'm not dead yet. Please, give me a chance.
Not dead, but in the Elysian fields, to quote Disraeli. Toby, would you like to be in the House of Lords?
Well, if duty calls, Jacob, I wouldn't decline.
That's a yes.
Yes. I remember when I was doing politics A-level and the question came up, why hasn't the House of Lords been reformed? And I was able to ask my father, who was made a life peer by Jim Callaghan, and he said it's never going to be reformed by the House of Commons, because if they reformed it and made it more democratic, they'd have to grant it more power. Its undemocratic nature is an excuse for not giving it much power. But interestingly, in the past few years, particularly since the Brexit vote, it has acquired more power. Its power to obstruct legislation has come to the fore in the last 6 or 7 years.
And that's really important, isn't it? Because a revising chamber that goes through statutory instruments and says technically these aren't correct, or asks the government to think again on a badly drafted piece of law, or one that gives ministers excessive powers, that's a completely proper role. But in recent years, particularly post-Brexit, the House of Lords has challenged again and again on policy.
Look, you and I have sat on committees in the House of Commons. We've sat on endless committees, any Finance Bill committee. We should actually be doing this in the House of Commons. Now, the first time that actually major reform came up, it was actually defeated by a strange combination of Michael Foot and Enoch Powell. And one of the things that they objected to have a directly elected House of Lords was the fact that it would then be in competition with the House of Commons. So I think slim it down, stop putting in cronies. We've now got a sort of Maundy Gregory situation where people can buy seats in the House of Lords.
But it's always been cronies. It's been cronies since its first creation.
Well, since Charles II, certainly.
Well, but even earlier, kings always put their mates into the House of Lords because they wanted, as soon as it was a legislature, to have control of it. That was important to them.
But that's the case against, isn't it?
One of the reasons I think the House of Lords has suddenly acquired more power than it's had before is because of the very rapid turnover in Prime Ministers. When a new Prime Minister comes into Downing Street, they have their own agenda, they want to put their stamp on Parliament, and so we have the illegal migration bill, for instance, which Rishi wants to get through before the election.
I think it's the removal of the hereditaries, because the hereditaries knew they were there on sufferance and therefore didn't push the boundaries. And it's important to remember that 2015 is the first time since at least 1832 when the Conservatives in government have not had a majority in the House of Lords. During the coalition, there was an effective majority with the Lib Dems. The coalition had a majority. Before that, from the removal of the hereditaries, obviously it wasn't a Conservative government. And therefore, you've got a non-Conservative majority able to challenge a Conservative government and feeling it's entitled to, because the hereditaries, by and large, have gone, the bit that made it least valid.
But they do have a majority in members. I mean, they're still the biggest single party.
Look, but not a majority.
No, not an overall majority. No, you have marvellous people like Lord Hilton, and you have marvellous independents.
Well, his wife is my godmother, so I'm a particular admirer.
I have no idea.
I'm a particular admirer.
I wasn't creeping, honestly.
He is the most wonderful man, exactly what a hereditary peer ought to be.
Let me just take you back to Dublin in 1923. You got the Irish Free State becomes the Irish Republic, and they decide, what are we going to do for a government? For an Oireachtas, a Dáil and a Sean. Should we have a single party? And they decided to have a bicameral legislation with the lower house, the Dáil, and the upper house, the Sean. But they decided that the second house would be purely on occupations. So there'd be somebody to represent the farmers, somebody to represent the W.B. Yeats, and of course, unfortunately, within 2 years, you then had Fianna Fáil farmers and Fine Gael tax collectors. So I don't think anyone's come up with a decent solution yet. But we could get there. But the question is, Jacob, how do we say to the President, 700-odd people in the House of Lords, we're going to slim you down so that you must never, ever exceed the numbers in the House of Commons?